If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to rate and review it. Your feedback will greatly impact our ability to reach more people. Thank you. What's up, man? How's it going?
Hey, I'm holding on. Nashville's been rough for the last week, but I'm here.
Nashville has been rough the last week indeed. So tell me, I'm not there right now. I'm just kind of curious, what is the current sentiment on the ground? Because I hear like maybe in your neck of the woods, they're talking about it could be another week or more until they get power back.
Yeah.
I've texted with some people who said they got power back today. Like, are people, it seems to me when I'm looking on social media that people are getting less and less patient with the response time around this.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's frustrating when the utility, can't deliver the service that we rely on. And so like over the weekend, I lost power, internet, that caused me to lose heat, and then maybe 15 trees in my yard. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's frustrating, but also that they need to clear thousands of trees. And in my neighborhood, maybe 80% of the telephone poles are impacted, either like leaning to the side or all the way down. It's like a war zone. I mean, the neighborhoods that have a lot of old growth trees, unfortunately, all the trees took significant damage. So it's sad. I mean, I was really sad Sunday for the loss of all these trees that you can't get back. I mean, you can't grow them back. Sunday night, I stayed at my house, like sort of in front of the fire all night. That's all I had was a fire. And then Monday, I moved to a hotel. But I agree. It's the rumor is that it's going to be at least another week from today. And it could be 10 days to 14 days from today. Of course, we're already 5 days into the storm recovery. So I moved into an Airbnb today because I just can't go without a kitchen for that long. And I have 2 dogs that are big, so I can't really go somewhere else, like fly somewhere or something. A lot of people have left, but with dogs, it's hard to do that.
Yeah, that's rough, man. Well, look, I'm glad you're warm and safe. My folks are good. I've tried to stay in touch with all the friends or check on people with social media, and it seems like everybody that I know is okay. But, it's been some close calls with people's parents out there. Yeah. And it's scary. It just shows you how quick things can just absolutely change, and like life is not the same. And it's gonna be a long time before the city comes back, like you said. I mean, 80% of your power lines down, like that's
yeah, and then like I thought I have a hotspot that I normally, even if I don't have internet wherever I am, I can just like turn on my phone and connect. And I think a lot of people were trying to do that. So Verizon and AT&T were live, but you could only call or text.
Yeah, they were overwhelmed.
Right.
Yeah, that's rough, man. All right. Well, look, we've got 8 big stories we got to run through today. And, as much as I'd like to keep talking to you about what's going on in Nashville, we got a job to do here.
Yeah,
and by the way, thanks for filling in last week. I'm feeling so much better today than I felt last week. So I appreciate that. All right. Well, look, let's go ahead and dig in. The first story is starting with the economy. So we've got two things that we want to frame up here. The first is that the Wall Street Journal has a story that says health insurance is now more expensive than the mortgage for Americans who are relying on Obamacare. So this is just pulling back the subsidies story. And now we sort of know what the cost is going to be once those subsidies are expiring. And, they've got some people here who they're talking about. They paid $255 a month last year for a low-end plan. And late last year, they learned their bill would be going up to $2,155 a month. I mean, it's just an unbelievable, growth curve on health insurance once these subsidies go away. Maybe just, give me, your initial thoughts, whether or not this subsidy, situation is going to be maintained, or we're really going to have households having to deal with that steep climb.
It's not a so for low income, there's really not a significant change, but it's that middle income where you make $80,000 to $100,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't qualify for you're just above the 400% threshold of the poverty line. But you're not feeling rich. I mean, if you make $85,000, spending $23,000 on health insurance is just a lot. Whether it is needed or not, I think we can debate, but it's a significant price jump and people are not budgeted for that. And yet there's going to be a lot of pain around it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any middle-class family that can handle that kind of jump.
No. I mean, by definition, if you make $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, you're not so well off that you have this like bunches of money able to sort of tap to meet your healthcare needs. But at the same time, healthcare is critical. So you can't skip it, or it's not good to skip it. And so my prediction is that people that are healthy are going to roll the dice and go without coverage.
Yeah.
And that will cause uncompensated care at hospitals as something happens and they all of a sudden need care. They'll go into the ED or they'll go in through some avenue, and it's going to be really bad for individuals and bad for the health system. So, and then some people will, if you really are, like if you have a chronic condition and you know that you're going to have significant healthcare expenses, the really high cost members of these plans, they're going to find a way to pay for it and cut back in other areas. That seems pretty clear. And so what will happen is the risk pool is going to get much worse, right? The healthy people are going to leave. And then if something happens, they'll get uncompensated care. They'll deal with it. That's going to be hard on the health systems. The insurance companies are going to be left with a group of people that are much sicker, much more likely to be very costly than the pool was last year. And so we'll get in this kind of bad cycle of next year they're going to need to raise prices again. And then you get a whole other wave of people opting out, and it's just not a good cycle.
I think you nailed it. I do think people simply cannot go from, something like $2,500 a year to $25,000 a year to pay for health insurance. That jump is just unsustainable and untenable for many people. I absolutely think the first shoe to drop will be a lot of uncompensated care that will fall at the doorstep of many safety net hospitals and also many nonprofit hospitals. And so completely agree with that. And then, yes, I think that the risk pools will start to get skewed. That may take a little bit longer to roll out, but I think you nailed it. And this is just healthcare economics 101. If you make the core insurance product unattainable, all the players in the market end up losing eventually, right? So maybe on the other side of that, it looks like we're going to continue to grow that individual market because this was a huge week for layoffs. The headline was probably Amazon laying off 16,000 corporate employees, partially because Amazon has sort of made a quarterly ritual of doing this. But there were many, many others that also had some fairly large layoffs. Home Depot had a big layoff. Dow Chemical had a really big layoff. These people who are getting laid off, they're going to get COBRA for a little bit, but they are ultimately going to be going to the marketplace if they cannot find a job quickly. And a lot of these are corporate jobs. I mean, across the board, many, many, many corporate jobs are the ones being cut. High cost jobs where, people, made a fair amount of money. And these are people who, many of them have families. And so they're going to need to get health insurance, and they're going to end up on the ACA marketplace.
Yeah. It's interesting. Amazon's like HR director, someone came out and was talking about it. And they were really saying that it's not so much to cut the costs, although they are going to cut the costs. It's compressing the levels of management so they no longer want to have so many levels of kind of middle management. And that makes sense to me. If your job is sort of working with a team of 15 below you and answering to bosses above you, that is not as valuable with AI because there's much more easy communication back and forth. I think that's going to be an ongoing trend, that those white collar sort of middle management jobs that were a great source of income are getting fewer and fewer to come by.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, moving into VC. We have one big story we want to talk about. AnswersNow raises $40 million to expand access to autism therapy. So this is not, one of the many AI VC stories that we normally cover. This is a story that is about delivering care, but this is virtual care. It's a Series B. It was led by HealthQuest Capital with participation from Left Lane Capital and Owl Ventures. And, I have experience in the autism space. Getting access is very, very difficult. Applied behavioral analysis is really the only insurance supported methodology for therapy that has sort of an industry underneath it where you can really deploy it, that has specialists around the country, behavior techs, behavior analysts. I think that creating a virtual option is really, really good because many parents can't necessarily get access to the centers, either because the centers are totally, booked out, or because they're not in the same location as a center and they can't get their kids there. Just like, you can't take your kid to a school that's not within reasonable distance from your home. But I also think it's not that clear how impactful virtual ABA will be. And so I think it's a Series B. Clearly, they've already been out in the market and they've been delivering this form of care. But I know that there are a lot of behavioral analysts, leaders in the space who question the efficacy of virtual only behavioral therapy.
Yeah, I think we have to solve this conundrum. Unfortunately, we have too many kids. The article says 1 in every 31 kids will be diagnosed with autism, which seems incredibly high. We have too many children needing the help and not enough providers, period. So I think we're going to have to find a way to deliver the services, and ABA is really the only common, accepted wide across every payer to treat autism. I have seen it work really well in pediatric physical therapy and occupation therapy because we invested in a company that delivers that. And at first I was skeptical. How are you going to deliver physical therapy over the internet, over, a video call, a Zoom call? But it's been really successful. And in fact, it's sort of empowering to the parents. What happens is you have to sort of teach the parents and the children collectively. And then, at least in our example, the parents then are able to reinforce this in between maybe do 2 visits a week in between there because they know a little bit more. Okay. I don't know autism, but if it has those kind of results, it could be really impactful.
If there were a plus that I would point to, one of the things that many parents of children with autism refer to are the triggers that sort of will result in behavioral outbursts. And many of those triggers are found at home. The sort of repetitive things that they see, they experience, that sort of triggers a particular behavior pattern that you're trying to empower the child to be able to, self-manage through ABA. And, moving to when you do ABA in a center, often those triggers are not present, because they're not in the same physical environment where that happens. And so that's why so many people are, advocates for home-based ABA. Now, in this case, it's virtual. The behavioral analyst may not be there, in the home with the child to kind of help him or her navigate the different triggers, but the child is at home, right? The child is in that same environment that they then have to take those skills that they're learning in those sessions and practice with. And so that to me does seem like it could be a real, positive benefit, and maybe, creates a lane for there to be more and more virtual ABA therapy offered, because it's a really, really tough space. Reimbursement rates are challenging. They're really, really tight. The labor market is also really, really tight. And so, BAs, behavioral analysts, they can make, much more money per hour than the behavioral technicians. And they know that, right? They can oversee BTs. And so it's a tough business to run. I think if you add in a virtual component, you give yourself a much better chance of being exposed to different markets where you can, have some arbitrage on rates, in terms of the reimbursement rate versus the labor rate. You probably can pay a better rate in terms of the business owner to the behavioral analyst if they're virtual and they don't have to travel, right? That's another perk for them. So it's an interesting model, and let's see if they're able to stick it out. Series B is a good sign, but it's still kind of early.
Yeah, I think we have to have an open mind, or I'd encourage the listeners to have an open mind about it. I mean, we have too many children that need this care. That's what we saw in the physical therapy market. Is there were wait lists of 6 months, 9 months, 12 months for your 1-year-old, and that's just not acceptable. And at the same time, we're in healthcare, we're mostly scientists. We need to let the data and the results speak for itself. So we should track the results that they're delivering. And I agree, raising this capital, they'll have enough reach that will have some good results. And then we learn from that and we do what's working well and continue. We're going to have new tools, so we have to keep advancing how we're treating kids.
Agree. All right, moving into policy. Trump administration proposes keeping steady the rates Medicare pays insurers. So more not great news for the health insurance industry. Trump seems to have no love for the health insurance industry, as indicated by the great healthcare plan that he rolled out a couple of weeks back, and a proposal for a 0.09 average rate increase is less than what Wall Street expected, and will probably hurt health insurer stocks as if they already have not been hurt so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the news, they were down almost immediately. These Medicare Advantage providers are already in a medical loss ratio well over the 85% that is sort of mandated. And that's basically their profitability. And so if you don't allow them to increase prices and everything else in the world, the cost of everything else is increasing, it's going to get tighter and tighter as far as their gross margins. I understand the Trump administration is trying to save money, but I don't know this is going to be that successful. It's going to put a lot of pressure on these payers that already have a lot of pressure on them.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about some of the results that rolled out this last week, but I mean, where do you think this goes ultimately? I mean, it's fairly clear to me that the Trump administration has determined that there's no impact to them politically negative, probably only positive, for them to play real hardball with the health insurers, right? Health insurers are just simply not popular in American society today. And so what options do you think the health insurance industry has? Like, where do you think they go from here, knowing they're unlikely to get a lot of leeway, in the way of giving them some breathing room to figure out how to navigate some of these changes?
I mean, they're going to ramp up utilization management, ramp up sort of pre-authorizations, just try to reduce their own spending because they have to. They already are very tight on margins, and like I say, the cost of all the costs to deliver care are increasing with the rate of inflation, or maybe slightly more than that from the provider sides. And so they're going to be negotiating those contracts, and they'll try to hold it flat, but it's going to be very challenging. And I think it's going to put more and more pressure on this role that the payers have to be the voice of reason and to control utilization, control payments. That's their function in our system, and they're going to have to be very challenged in doing that.
I mean, with this kind of pressure, why do we even have Medicare Advantage? Why doesn't everyone just go to fee-for-service Medicare?
Yeah, I know. I mean, the entire concept of Medicare Advantage, which was done with HealthSpring here in Nashville, was to create an incentive structure where you capitated a rate for a patient and then allowed the insurance provider to make a margin if they were to deliver care for less than that. And that was the original idea that I think made a lot of sense. And then, of course, we started to see, well, what if this patient has more chronic disease than someone else? Their capitated rate should be higher. And then there's a lot of games. Optum and others have been in trouble for sort of trying to elevate the risk of patients in order to get paid more. But yeah, that was the idea, to bring sort of the competitive marketplace to bear to help. And it no longer is really functioning. I agree.
No, it doesn't. Look, if I'm a health insurance company today, I think bigger is not better. I think get out of these government books of business. It's, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think you can win because, okay, like let's play it out, right? It's like, okay, you get squeezed, you don't get rate increases. We're not going to offer subsidies on the market. And then, okay, your response was they're going to get into utilization management. They're going to get into prior auth. These are the very things that have made them so incredibly unpopular with the American public, right?
Right.
And like, who wants to pay 10x for their not very good ACA marketplace plan and then get twice the prior auth pressure?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're somewhat different, Medicare Advantage and the Affordable Care Act, but it's the same idea. Like, who wants to be in this where why do I even have insurance if I'm dealing with all this stuff?
Correct. And I don't think I heard you say they're going to isolate the utilization management and the prior auth just to this particular book of business. Because they're going to have to offset this much more challenging book of business with some other books of business, right? You know what I mean? They're going to have to find extra cream in marketplace or commercial or whatever, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. And maybe in fee for service, but the fee for service Medicare is also going to be challenged in every part of the healthcare insurance landscape. Commercial, I mean, we're going to talk about the commercial later in the show, employer based. It's challenging all over, which is why the stocks are suffering.
All right, so quickly, UnitedHealth revenue climbs in 2025. The profits continue to fall. Medicare Advantage is I think, the primary culprit for the profit issues. They posted a record $447.6 billion in revenue last year, so that's very good. $12.1 billion in profit, down from $14.4 billion the year prior. It's the company's lowest annual profit since 2018, as they, had to restructure. But those numbers don't sound terrible, and yet UnitedHealth stock fell 16% in pre-market trading after the release.
Yeah, well, they're growing their top line and making less money. So, it's just not as profitable or attractive a business to own as it used to be, which is why the stock's suffering.
And then Elevance sets prudent 2026 guidance as it navigates ongoing cost utilization pressures. They expect to make a return to 12% growth in earnings per share in 2027. Their outlook for 2026 earnings per share is $25.50. So, I think that they are doing relatively well, as well, given the environment. They're navigating all the government pay dynamics as the largest blue in the country. They brought in $197.6 billion in revenue, up 12.8% from 2024's number. But again, their profits were down by 5.3% compared to 2024. So
and the MLR for Elevance. I mean, Elevance and United are two of the best run. Now, whether you like the people or their mission or not, they're very well run insurance companies.
Yes.
And Elevance quoted their medical loss ratio at 93.5.
Whew.
That is not sustainable.
Oh my gosh.
That means 6.5 cents out of every dollar is their gross margin. And then they have all their overhead, all their costs as well. I mean, it's just really tight.
Man, I didn't know that. 93% MLR.
Yeah.
Whew.
I mean, that doesn't work. I mean,
No.
it's not.
No.
I mean, they can operate. I mean, they will operate, but it puts a lot of pressure on these management teams.
All right, well, let's move to two of the best providers in the space that have a pretty different story. HCA unveils a bullish 2026 guidance despite a $600 to $900 million ACA exchanges hit. The company announced a 6.7% year-over-year increase in fourth quarter revenue to $19.5 billion and a 30.6% increase in net income attributable to HCA to $1.9 billion. Really, really strong years. And they are guiding higher next year than the street thought.
Yeah, that's right. And they are sort of leveraging their experience and their scale to drive cost advantages. They're using technology, they're using AI and other tools, and they're really well run. So they're navigating these cost hits. The ACA loss of subsidies is going to be really negative to all health systems, and of course HCA knew how that game worked and benefited from it for a long time. But they will navigate that, and they're going to strengthen, I think.
Agree. And Cleveland Clinic, their budget overperformance in 2025 paves the way for growth. They brought in $18 billion of operating revenue across the year with almost 16 million global patient encounters, operating margin exceeding 4%. That is up from $16 billion for last year. And 15 million patient encounters. So Cleveland's brand globally continues to expand and grow the top line on both patient encounters and revenue. They highlight some of their work in London as well as in their Cleveland Clinic in Abu Dhabi. Lots of positive things here. And they also are doing strategic collaborations with some pretty big name VCs like Coastal Ventures. So, here are two of the best brands in specialty care, as well as just being a super regional in the case of HCA, and neither of them really showing the wounds that two of the best in the insurance industry, United and Elevance, had to show when they had to do their quarterly reports.
Yeah, I think that's right. The health systems, if they have scale and have been
brand.
Scale and brand. And also they've sort of been careful about their network and how they've built their overall integrated delivery network with their referral systems and, kind of ambulatory and diagnostic tools, which both of these platforms have. They can continue to navigate it pretty well. So I think the big health systems that are well run are going to do well, because there's a whole bunch of smaller health systems that are going to really suffer. So that's the other side of it. But these two brands are really strong.
All right, moving into DTC, Hims and Hers. It's Super Bowl time, so we're getting ready for another big Hims and Hers advertisement. Last time they were, really putting out an ad around why they ought to be able to continue to sell GLP-1 drugs. This year, they're attacking the K-shape economy and basically saying that they are for the every person, and that rich people, get to have all manner of healthcare, do whatever they want, do all this longevity stuff. And Hims and Hers is really sort of the brand for every person. So this is going to play during the Super Bowl. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, Hims is really good at sort of understanding the zeitgeist and timing the Super Bowl to meet it. They did it with the GLP-1s last year, and it was questionable legality in my mind, but it really paid off for them, and wasn't any blowback. And I think this is really smart. I mean, it starts off with the quote, "Rich people live longer," and then goes into they cheat death and they get advantages that you don't get, and then ends with, "Come to Hims and Hers, and we'll get you the best of everything too. Just come onto our team, and we'll help you with it." Which,
right.
Whether it's true or not is immaterial. I think it's going to get a lot of people to go check out Hims and Hers, because I want to live longer too. I want to cheat death, and I don't have that wealth to do function or fly around to somewhere to do a one-off thing. But I can hit the HIMSS website and pay them whatever it is, $50 a month to get my treatment.
I also think they're tapping into something in the zeitgeist that's going to probably play out quite a bit more as we, roll towards the midterms, which is, all the layoffs, all the increase in expenses, all the lack of housing, all the artificial intelligence, all the $1 trillion company valuations on the stock market. Like, I feel like a little bit of an anti-rich people movement is building,
Yes, definitely.
Right?
Anti-rich, anti-tech. Yeah.
Anti-rich, anti-tech. And I think that they're tapping into that, right? I think they're tapping into that. So they seem to be very, very aware of where the zeitgeist is and where the general public is. And they feel like, maybe the prototype of a new kind of healthcare brand. Think about like how bad healthcare brands have been forever, right? Yeah. And they're not bad. They're like excellent at brand. It's like, it might be their number one asset, right? Is their brand and their ability to communicate. And this might be the thing that we really have to start paying a lot more attention to is, if we're going to force people off of insurance because it sucks, it costs too much, and even the insurance companies can't make any money, so they're just going to kind of like quietly leave more and more markets, we may end up more and more in a D2C world. And I think we talked about what is going to happen for the bottom half of the K. And of course, if we go to the bottom of the K, we know what the answer is there. It's Medicaid. But, that's not for everybody. For many, many people, it's these terribly priced, sans subsidies, marketplace plans, or go it on your own. And in that world, brand is going to actually really, really matter.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, for 50 years, and here in Nashville has been the heart of it, there was not a lot of focus on brand and marketing, partially because it was meant to be sort of the doctor knows best and the doctor in the white coat will treat you, and we're not going to sell you something that you don't need. It's science-based, it's medicine. And partially because it was, they didn't want to get accused of colluding and sort of setting prices and worried about government oversight. And that is out the window now. I mean, there are Hims and Hers and others, we'll talk about Amazon in a minute, that are really building this, starting with primary care, but they're going to, I think, quickly move into specialty. Hims and Hers already has done that. And I predict that in the next year or two, we'll see some of these platforms negotiate with big systems like HCA or Cleveland Clinic to refer their surgical cases or refer for cancer treatment, because referring that volume is really valuable to the systems, and they can negotiate in a way that the individual healthcare consumer can't.
Agreed. Also on the D2C front, Reperio, who is our good friend Travis, has scored a partnership with Amazon One Medical, where Reperio is going to be their partner in delivering at-home testing. So super cool. Congratulations to the Reperio team. Congratulations to Caduceus, who's our buddies and our investors in Reperio. What do you think about this? I mean, obviously, kudos to Travis, but again, this is D2C care coming from a very big brand that is disrupting, the lab business.
Yeah, this is super exciting. I mean, Reperio can, in partnership with Amazon, check your blood pressure, heart rate, body mass, relative fat, blood glucose, lipid panel without you having to go into a doctor or go to a lab. They send it to your house and you follow the instructions, you send it back to them. Travis has done a great job with the logistics of this, and then partnering with Amazon is brilliant. It really speeds up the process, which helps with, getting your diagnosis more quickly. It makes it more convenient. It's good all around, and it's going to really stress the establishment because they move very quickly, and it's going to be hard for other folks to respond.
Yep. Agree. Okay, we have a big merger in the employer primary care space. So Premise Health, helmed by Stu Clark, who you did a great interview with here on Health Further, and Crossover Health are announcing a merger. And I think this is important because in this space, there aren't that many big brands, and these are two of the biggest brands in the employer primary care space, and them coming together starts to kind of make a bit of a mega company for the employer primary care space. So you interviewed Stu, give me a little bit of your thoughts on this kind of merger taking place.
Premise is the best kept secret in Nashville. It is very successful. It's a large business. They're across the country with large employers, and them combining with Crossover makes it even bigger and more dominant. But more importantly, they have done. They published a peer-reviewed study, and Millman was checking it. So this was a real study with controls where they delivered a 30% savings per person on 200,000 lives for their employers. And it was very successful. And Stu thinks he can deliver that not every year, but in year one, and then continue to get savings over time. Mm-hmm. But he's Premise and Crossover have both been doing that for a long time. As they get scale, and we talked about this in the podcast, I forget what it was, something like 101, 104, somewhere like that, as far as Health Further. But he's planning to create his own provider network in order to go to employers and kind of disrupt the ASO space, mm-hmm. because he's in a great position to that. He's managing the primary care at the company's headquarters or in a manufacturing plant. He knows these employees very well. He's following them. And then it's very easy to add in it's kind of like I was saying with Amazon and Reperio and HIMSS. He's going to do it in the employer space where he then takes the ASO business and does the referrals, and he can manage that claim process. He's already managing the claims for his customers now on the primary care side. They've started to do that, but they didn't really have quite enough scale to negotiate well. I haven't talked to him about this merger, but certainly it gives him a lot more scale.
All right, let's switch over to pharma. So Wall Street Journal, here's what happens when you stop taking Ozempic and Wegovy. Popular weight loss drugs are meant to be lifelong treatments for disease, not lifestyle fixes. So what does happen, Vic? I mean, I know several friends who are on GLP-1s, and they absolutely plan to get off of them, right? It's like they're using them to drop weight. The weight is dropping. They're a little worried about the loss of muscle, and their plan is they're going to get off of these drugs. So what does this article say is going to happen to them when they do that?
The biochemistry is not designed for that. It was engineered to be a lifelong drug. I take a statin, and I think people understand statin pretty well because it's been around a lot longer than GLP-1 has. And it blocks the biochemistry pathways so that you don't, I'm not going to get it right, but you don't sort of store cholesterol in the same way. And if you stop taking the statin, you will go back to your previous level of cholesterol. GLP-1s, it says it in this article, they are identical in their design. They interrupt the pathway, driving your urge to eat, your appetite, your hunger. And if you stop taking it, even if you sort of titrate down, it is very difficult to maintain the weight loss. It's possible, but you have to change your behavior. It's just like anyone losing weight. And yes, you mentioned it. The concern is that you lose 60 pounds, but 25% of that is muscle mass. And then when you gain the weight back, unless you're really working out a lot, you don't gain the muscle back. So over time, as you go, if you are yo-yoing your weight, typically you will get less and less muscle mass over time and more fat content. So it's a bad trajectory. And I just think most people don't realize that this was designed to be a medicine you take for your entire life. It's not designed as a one-off, like a 6-month thing, and then you go off it.
Presbyopia. eye drop from startup Tenpoint gets FDA approval, paving the way for $235 million in financing. I'm really excited about this, and I didn't even know I was excited about it because maybe I have presbyopia. But it sounds like this is like aging eye, right? It's like the natural
As you
process that
age,
happens.
Yeah, I mean, I have my readers right here. As you age, your cornea, your lens in your eye gets a little stiffer. It gets stiffer, and simultaneously the muscles that move it weaken. So the combination of those things, you cannot focus close up as well as you could when you were younger, and your cornea was very flexible and your muscles were stronger. And so this company has produced an eye drop that would do. There's been surgical repair for a long time, but that's pretty scary and invasive. So the drop is much more approachable, and yeah, just got approved. So I'm really interested in it as well. I haven't talked to my optometrist yet, but I'm going to just see what he says.
Yeah, I mean, look, the brands that are around this, I mean, it's going to be an AbbVie product, I think, right? So you know, I'm ready to, you know, I'm ready to go. Sign me up.
Yeah. It's going to be a huge space if it works.
If it works,
and yes. The FDA, you know, at least it's safe and effective at a level that the FDA approved.
Right.
The FDA, as we have talked about on the show, the FDA does not talk about, you know, if it is worth the price or not.
Right.
And so we'll have to see like what the effect is and how much it costs and do that kind of cost benefit analysis. But it's a great option.
Yeah. The FDA is all about safety and effectiveness. All right, let's talk Tether. So moving into crypto, Tether is the largest company in the world that most people don't even know about, but they are really the original stablecoin company. Before there was a Circle, before there was an Athena, there was Tether, and they've always been a little scrutinized because people have wondered about what was backing these stable coins that they put out there. But they've somehow managed to weather all of those concerns and continue to deploy more and more stable coins around the world. So Tether's not used that much in America, but all over Asia and Africa, you know, Tether is for sure the primary stablecoin. And now they are buying up to $1 billion of gold per month and storing it in a James Bond bunker. I mean, that's just like...
Yeah, it's in Switzerland under a mountain with, you know, lots of steel doors and guards. I think the total hoard is what they're calling it. The gold hoard is 24 billion right now, and they're buying $1 billion every month. And it's because Tether is very, very profitable. And I give them credit. I mean, we knew people here in Nashville. I invested personally in one of them. They were trying to create a stable coin algorithmically with software. Yeah. And Tether went in a very low tech way, and they match it. They match a dollar 1-for-1 with a U.S. Treasury bill, which is, you know, about the most safe asset that you could have. And the insight that they had, which was brilliant, that I missed, is they don't give you any return on your dollar you give them to hold as you get the Tether coin back, they keep the yield on it. They keep the interest rate, and they have, I don't know, hundreds of billions of dollars in U.S. Treasuries, and so they have been diversifying that into other assets, including gold. So I'm watching them because Tether's going to be, they're a rising power. I don't know, they're one of the strongest corporations around that's not really tied to a sovereign country. They're kind of their own new crypto entity, I would say somewhat outside of the geopolitical landscape. And that's just interesting to watch. I don't know what will come of it, but you're right. Circle is sort of the U.S. Approved version of this. And that there's room for more than two. stable coins.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Tether will be compliant as the regulation kind of all gets worked out here in the States. Genius got through. Clarity is hitting some stumbling blocks right now. But I think Tether is going to be a legitimate player in the United States too. I just don't think they have the brand here that a Circle does because of Coinbase.
But and I don't think they care as much.
They don't care.
Coinbase is not going to. I mean, this is U.S. is their home turf. It's like where they have all the political clout, all of the market share.
Yes,
they're going to defend that, pretty aggressively as they should, and it's the best market. But Tether has the rest of the world, and they will get their share in the U.S. too. And $1 billion a month is not a bad pace to be buying gold. So
something else. All right, this was a big week in AI, and I think specifically it was specifically a big week for AI agents. Dario Amodei was one of the big stars at the World Economic Forum. He recently released, a new article that was sort of the companion to his first big opus, which was called Machines of Loving Grace. This one is the Adolescence of Technology. I think that Anthropic continues to be the company that best communicates the reality of the impending impact that AI is going to, bring to society. And while they are growing and they are developing this company that is, rapidly developing AI for the enterprise, they also are on stages or on the internet communicating about the reality that AI is going to disrupt humanity as we know it. And so you stopped us here on this player piano section of the article talking about economic disruption. Why here?
I think there's a whole bunch of fearful aspects that are in the article that I think are real, and people should read the whole article. But I think there are positive things as well, and I want to try to balance those two things. And I think a lot of our readers, a lot of my friends, if you read the first page, you might not get to this, whatever it is, page 20. And there's a lot of upside too. I mean, he's saying that it's going to be possible, there's no prediction exactly, but possible to have a 10 to 20% annualized GDP growth every year consistently. And this player piano concept, I think, makes a lot of sense where you are, the player piano would be in a bar or in a restaurant, just kind of giving background music before we had Spotify and streaming. And it's maybe going to be like that in an upside scenario, that there are aspects of the job of venture capitalists that I don't love to do, and AI could take those tasks away, and yet I wouldn't lose my job. I could just do more, better, faster. That's kind of the hope. Anthropic has this weird identity where it is sort of one of the leading frontier models, one of the most valuable AI companies in the world, and pushing this forward. And at the same time, one of the leading people yelling about how dangerous it is and concerning, which I think is just hard. It's hard for me to get that straight in my head. I think it was an intentional decision to stress like that they're different than OpenAI. That's my kind of behind the scenes guess, is they're trying to differentiate relative to Sam Altman and OpenAI's branding. But that's what I always struggle with these articles.
Yeah, I mean, I think that where I have landed with Anthropic is at some point they realized that AI's development, for reasons we all understand, nation states, the competitiveness of global economic markets, et cetera, that nothing was really going to be able to stop AI. And so, it is my view that they are certainly building a very, very competitive company. but that they have concerns about the way that AI will be rolled out. And part of how they can properly express those concerns and participate in addressing those concerns is by having a leading frontier model. Because, it's one thing to write posts on a Substack, like so many people do. I think it's another to potentially win the frontier model wars. And, I think we've talked so many times about how it's not going to be only one winner, but let's say you're in the top 5 when all the dust settles.
Yeah. They seem like they're a winner, definitely.
Right. So if they're going to be a winner, and then they are, collaborating with their frontier model on a constitution that has some very, very clear guidelines about how it is supposed to interact with humanity and how it's supposed to stay aligned. That could be a very important factor in assuaging some of the worst outcomes that could possibly happen if AI does go totally left, right? And so to me, it's like, yes, they do have a frontier model, but it's like the only way to potentially stave off some of these worst case scenarios is to actually be in the game, right? It's like just being a commentator about it on the sidelines is not going to stop anything. So that's how I've sort of squared the fact that they are both operating a very, very aggressive frontier model company, but also constantly warning everybody about some of the implications of this technology.
Yeah, I think that is a good assessment. I'm more cynical than that. I mean, I think that it's an intentional branding thing to make sales with enterprise. And I'm not so concerned about an AI getting, waking up and taking over the world like Terminator. I think it's much more humans using AI in ways that are not good for other humans that I'm concerned about. And that's the risk in my mind. And whether it's intentional or stupidity, I mean, we should go to the Clawdbot or whatever the new name is, because that's kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty good next story setup, right? Which is Clawdbot kind of took over the internet over the course of the last week or so. It's been around for 3 or so weeks. But in this last week, it really kind of took over. So Clawdbot is an agent. And, while so many people talk about agents, this agent actually works. It can access your entire computer. You can communicate with it on all sorts of chat apps, WhatsApp, Telegram, Slack channels, et cetera, et cetera. And it's open source and it's free. And so people were and also it was getting so hyped, right? And so because of all the hype, people are installing this thing and they're not really equipped to be working with something like this. It's like when you go on the website, you install it using a curl command in your terminal, right? So right there, right. that tells you it's a technical tool, right? For someone who's technically competent. And I'll tell you, Vic, I ran the curl command and it started the install process. And I think on the first screen, it kind of told me what the risks were. And because we run the kind of company we ran, I nope, turned it off. I was like, no way. I was like, I'll come back to this when I spin up, a little, virtual machine on Google Cloud or something. And then I'll install it there.
I pulled out the old Jumpstart laptop that I don't use because it's not powerful enough anymore. I might install it on that. But I'm the same way. It's too much power. And I don't have enough levers of control that I fully understand. I mean, if you're going to install this open source system, I think you have to be able to read the entire code base and understand what it is. Otherwise, there could be any backdoor, anything in there that is giving all of my passwords and API keys to some other site. And so, but no one, of course, no one worried about the risk. They just sort of went full, all gas, no brake, throwing it on, and it's really powerful. And so you can get a lot of work done, but there's risk. I mean, people are exposing email passwords, bank accounts, bank account passwords unintentionally, but there are bad actors that it's just not good to have that out there.
Yeah, and not just all of that sensitive information, but also like ports to your machine are exposed. I mean, one of the big things that happened was someone ran a scan and could see all of these computers that had left their ports open, because that's something that, Clawdbot, now Moltbot, because Anthropic, sent a cease and desist, right? And made them change the name. So now it's Moltbot, and I guess they call it Moldy.
They didn't. They needed the brand only for the first 2 weeks. They don't need. Yeah. They can be Moltbot now. It doesn't matter.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. But anyway, I mean, I guess the point is just, man, this stuff is moving so fast now, right? And also, I just got to keep saying this, because I think people who are not doing this don't understand. It's also only happening on X. It's only happening on X. Like, you don't know what's going on if you're not on X with right. AI. And I wish that wasn't true. It's not like it's my favorite social network. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I posted on X. But if you want to know what is going on with AI, you got to have an X account and just use it to study.
Yeah. And YouTube. I think there's a lot on YouTube as well.
Yeah, YouTube is well, it's a different format. And it's really slower. Like, you're not going to get the volume of information on YouTube that you will on X in the same amount of time. It's just
right.
It's just not the same. All right, final story, which is now sort of the next thing in the agent model. Moonshot AI releases open source Kimi K2.5 model with 1 trillion parameters. So Kimi K2, it's a model that is really a group of experts. And so they all sort of scrabble together and work on problems. But it's not just one model. It's really a bunch of different models working together. And the parameters mean that the neural network is vast, can maintain a ton of context, and can do much more complicated project work than it could before. And what's just so crazy is this thing is open source, and it feels to me, Vic, like, as much as we talk about Anthropic and Claude, and don't get me wrong, I think Opus 4.5 was a complete and utter breakthrough. But we're also on this collision course with these open source models that are also improving at an incredible rate and distributing open source, LLM capabilities out to the edge, to the individual, where they can run it all locally. And I think that is where the power in computing is really going to go. Like, you think about running a Kimi K2 on your laptop. Right now, I think it's too expensive, not cost-wise, but in terms of like how much power and RAM it would take up on your laptop. But one day they're going to get this thing compressed to where you can run it on your laptop, and you run that against your Notes app or your local Obsidian instance, or, whatever it is you're using for your second brain. And man, I mean, this thing is going to get really, really powerful in a way that you're going to wonder, why am I paying for ChatGPT? I mean, one thing I noticed this week is Claude sent an email out that they're lowering their cost for their Teams plan. And I took a screenshot of that and I sent it to my friends, and I said, when was the last time any SaaS company sent you an email that they were lowering their costs?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's because they are killing it. I mean, they are making so much money in enterprise. Anthropic is. But I agree, the marginal benefit of going with the next new version, not Opus 4.5, but the Opus 5.0, it's just, there's less and less that you can squeeze out. I mean, at some point, all the intelligence of humankind is embodied in this thing, and you really can't get any smarter until it starts learning on its own. And I think it's important to point out that Kimi K2 came out a year ago, Kimi K2.5 now. This is a Chinese model. The Chinese open sourced it, which I normally think of as an American thing. But they are trying to catch up, and I think they've caught up. It's a 1 trillion parameter model, and it's not all text. So most of the frontier models are text only. This is text, audio, and video training. So it has a much more inclusive understanding of the world. And then it's so cheap that it can sort of spin up And one of the advantages of the model is that it spins up what they call a swarm of agents to do various parts of a task. And so it does things much more quickly because in parallel, we'll have 30 different sub-agents doing different component parts, and they stitch it together. It's, I am still a fan of Manus. It was a Chinese company. It is a Chinese company that got bought by Meta. The Chinese are serious competitors to the US, and I hope we'll beat them, but it's not a done deal. I mean, they have a lot of strength.
Not a done deal at all. All right, man. Look, great show. Next week, I'm going to be on the show, but I will still not be in Nashville. It'll be 2 weeks before I get back to Nashville. So
hopefully I will move back home by next week. We'll see. I don't know.
Fingers crossed for you, brother. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.